there's always been this argument as to why the United Workers' Party lost the last general election. And early on you said that you lost a large chunk of your support during the 2011 general election. Don't you think that whatever happened to you also resulted in the United Workers' Party losing the general election? Other candidates would have lost support. Let's take, for example, the Grizzly constituency with Leonard Spider-Motu. Don't you think that would have impacted him as well?
Let me tell you something, Tim. And I can say this. You have a system where what happened in the general elections does not reflect true democracy. And what happened is not good for either political party. You cannot have a situation where a government is formed by Lord won by 54 votes or thereabout. Alvina won by how many votes?
About 2 votes.
2. Mm-hmm. And Emma won by about 7. Mm-hmm. So you have a situation where 54, 2, and 7, 61, 63, sorry. But let us just see 65. You have a situation where government is formed by 65 votes. 65 votes. But there are over 3,000 spoiled ballots. You with me?
Who will change the system? Because both sides are benefiting from it.
And it is not...
The United Workers' Party have benefited from it the same way in 2006.
No. My point is, no, but the margin of victory did not surpass spoiled ballots by that margin. I am not saying that the Labour Party did not win. I am not saying Flabo did not win. All I am saying is for a true reflection of democracy, for persons to have exercised their franchise and to have been involved in the formation of a government, you cannot permit the continuation of a situation where a government is formed by 65 votes, but you have over 3,000 spoiled ballots. It permits too much manipulation in my mind. So that blame game, I'm saying all of this for you to understand, that blame game has no basis. The blame game has no basis. And that had, when I remember Michael Flood and some other people had this brouhaha about that is not, I'm not saying Labour Party would have lost there. Neither am I saying in 2006 Flabo would have lost. But for true democracy to prevail, you want that to almost to be zero. In other words, you cannot have ballots that are almost 30 times more than what the government is formed by.
So you're saying change the system and use a stamp?
Use whatever system that minimizes that kind of discrepancy.
The use of the stamp, as far as you're concerned,
I'm not sure.
Would be acceptable.
I'm not sure. I cannot
so
now.
What are you suggesting?
No, I'm suggesting any system that minimizes those spoiled ballots, because it means over 3,000 people's voices were not heard. Over 3,000 people believed they exercised their franchise, and the whole exercise was one in futility. You understand? And it is not good for democracy. It is not good for either political party, because for all you know, the results may have given Labour 1 or 2 more seats, or may have had Flabo sitting in office.
What prevents politicians on the whole from effecting those major changes so that there could be true democracy? You were saying this from a particular perspective, and that is from being the MP for Cashview Central, and you're not in government.
Yes.
I don't think you'd be making those same pronouncements if the United Workers' Party was in office and you were a member of the United Workers' Party.
No. I was one of those asking for, at least I didn't know it was the stamp. I mean, I got to know it was the stamp after Michael Flood essentially aired his concerns about spoiled ballots. But I always indicated that you can't have a system where any government, and I don't want to take it from a partisan standpoint, but any government that is formed by a mere 65 votes, when you have 3,000 spoiled ballots, I mean, that anomaly needs to be eradicated completely so that the government in office, number one, is the government elected by the people, and number two, is given the right number of seats.
Now, that's your point of view. What about when the people have spoken, when their views have been solicited, as was done through the Constitutional Reform Commission, and you, other government MPs, so far you'll have failed to really give any kind of legal standing, any teeth to those recommendations?
No, I disagree with you, Tim. You must understand that there is a process before law is enacted.
Yeah, but the only time there was unity in the House recently was during a sitting where yourself, the other MPs, opposition and government, basically decided that the recommendations of the CRC, those recommendations were not fair, were not worth implementing.
No. There were some recommendations that were, I mean, I'll tell you frankly, they were outrageous.
Such as?
Well, none of them dawned on me at this time.
What about recall, the power of recall?
Oh yeah, of course I support that. I support the power of recall. I mean, it is not just the power of recall, it's how it is done. You know, there was something about running meat, you know, that I can't remember, you know, verbatim what the section says, but essentially it's saying that every person who runs must have a running mate, and that running mate becomes the minister, and the person who actually ran the elections would remain in his constituency. I mean, things that made...
Okay, why do you think that the MPs were not prepared to implement any of the recommendations?
No, that you were incorrect, team.
Okay.
You were incorrect. There were many.
Term limits.
I mean, there were hundreds of... Who did not agree to term limits?
But what are you doing? What are your politicians and MPs doing about it in terms of implementing?
No, Tim, the document was given as a holistic document. And I can tell you now there were many provisions that were agreed upon unanimously. Likewise, there were provisions that were outrageous, that both sides of the political divide decided that, look, those sections need to be revisited.
But why should you deem the recommendations coming from the people to be outrageous?
Not necessarily from the people, from the commissioners.
No.
No.
They penned the report, but it's after collating the views of the people. Maybe you'll are of the impression that is coming from the commissioners.
No. There are certain recommendations that essentially you could see through them coming from the people directly. There are recommendations that you know came from the brain of a lawyer, so to speak. And I mean, some of them were, like I said, they were totally outrageous, and essentially what they would have done is to drive people away from presenting themselves as candidates for any political party, and that's not what you want. You want to at least ensure that persons are interested in being elected so as to run the affairs of the given constituencies. You know, but on the point of the document was a holistic document, some parts were agreed upon, some were not totally agreed upon. For example, there was, I mean, the Governor General is supposed to be, the recommendation is that you are born St. Lucian. Now, I mean, the Governor General, in my view, is just, she's a representative of the Queen, or he or she is a representative of the Queen, and does not get involved in the daily operations of governance. Yet you're saying the Governor General should be a St. Lucian, but the Prime Minister that deals with day-to-day operations of the state, there was no provision in there for him or her to be a St. Lucian. So I personally recommended that. Now, if that document was taken in its holistic fashion and passed, then all those recommendations brought about by the different MPs would not have been taken cognizance of. So that is what is being done now. The document is being revisited, and in the not too distant future, I suspect another document will be tabled that contains the concerns of the MPs and would be at least edited so as to reflect those changes.
I'm putting it to you that an independent body should be the entity responsible for the implementation of the recommendations in the CRC report.
Yeah, well, I guess I'm not sure. I think a commission was appointed.
But in the end, it will be Parliament voting on it. So,
yeah, but then don't forget, you know what you're doing there now, Tim? You're saying that you can have an independent commission passing legislation outside Parliament, which is how our Constitution decides that law must pass in the first place. So you now. Yeah, but
why should
you understand?
Why should the elected politicians decide their own rules?
No, but I'm saying
the rules that should govern the activities.
See, well, in the recommendation, then the commissioners would have had to recommend that law can be passed outside Parliament.
Okay, so which Prime Minister,
which would be unconstitutional?
Which Prime Minister will agree to a two-term limit? I mean, power is sweet.
I would know.
Power is sweet. That's the impression we get from politicians.
Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. I mean, power is sweet. Nah. I mean,
if you
management.
Let
me tell you something.
If you look at the
management of power,
Mr. Frederick,
that is important.
If you look at the attitude of some politicians,
power is sweet.
If you look at the attitude of some politicians, that's the impression that you get.
Power is sweet.
That's power is sweet.
And they do anything for power.
I mean, Sir John Compton loved power. And based on what I saw, based on what I experienced in St. Lucia, he loved it, right?
He loved power.
He could not live without power.
Really?
I think he died a happy man.
But wait a minute.
No, you disagree?
Why? I don't know. I think he died
because
a happy man.
He died being Prime Minister of St. Lucia.
Yeah,
he died a happy man.
Yeah, but I'm not sure that can be juxtaposed or to his love for power. You know, you're saying that he died a happy man.
You think Dr. Kenny Anthony does not love power?
I don't know. How would I know if he loves power? I'm not sure. I mean, let me tell you, those jobs can be very, very stressful, you know.
So why those guys don't want to give up after 2 terms, after 3 terms?
But I don't think this is one of the recommendations that persons express concern over. I'm not sure.
No, I think there was a recommendation for term limits.
Yes, I know, but I'm saying I don't think the parliamentarians generally disagreed. Probably 1 or 2 may have.
But do you agree to term limits?
Of course, like the U.S. And one of the things I agree to term limits. I agree to a precise election date so that no party has an advantage over the other. And one of the right to recall, I mean, I don't know how that can be legislated upon, but I do believe that, you know, because at the end of the day, politicians ride on the popularity of their political party, and both political parties have a support base. And because of that allegiance, you have persons who just vote Flabo or vote Labour, and they would vote for anybody who comes under that general umbrella, irrespective of that person being a candidate for 1, 2, or 3 terms and being unable to show a thing that he or she has done. And that is why we are stagnated by that divisive partisan politics. Because a man or woman who's a politician or a district rep knows that he or she does not have to do too much to win again.
And that is taking the voters for granted.
Indeed they are.
You're watching Newsmaker Live right here on DBS Television. My guest this evening is the MP for Castries Central, Mr. Richard Frederick. We'll be back in a moment.